Good afternoon, morning, or night, wherever and whenever you are. This is another episode of Tech-Stew, the show that discusses the best of everything tech, computers, home theater, gaming, flight sims, science, and more. I am Mark Murin.
And I'm Dylan.
And we are back. First episode of 2013, slightly delayed. Meant to get this one rolling a few days ago, but had technical difficulties. But at any rate, welcome to 2013 and some new tech and science, and gaming. And last episode I made some predictions for 2013, including the first alien contact. Dylan, you missed out on that. No, I didn't actually say first alien contact.
Oh, I thought I missed out on the first alien contact.
Yeah, you missed that. That happened. Actually, that happened December 21st last year, and nobody really realizes it because we're in some kind of virtual loop now, starting all over. But
makes sense to me.
But no, I made a couple of little ones. I said that maybe there would be a big Mars Curiosity discovery, something with life, maybe some sort of past life detection. I think that could easily happen this year.
Yeah, agreed.
Possibly. So, you got any bold predictions for this year? Maybe this Pirates win the World Series?
No way. They're going to lose again on purpose.
20 straight losing seasons now for
exactly
the hapless Pittsburgh
I don't know.
Pirates.
They might try to close it out after 20. We'll see.
Yeah, this could be the year. I'm holding out hope. Well, we got the big year for Windows 8, of course. This is the sink or swim year for Windows 8. Windows 8 could and should still be somewhat successful. After all, it targets a bigger market than just PCs. People talk about the decline in PC sales. Well, we got the boom in other areas too, mobile world. I don't see it as being a complete failure. It may be a little shocking to a lot of people using Windows 8 and hoping for Windows 9, but you won't have to hope very long because I'm sure they're going to be pushing out newer versions sooner.
Yeah, I know they were talking about a yearly release plan, but I don't know if that's going to be Windows 9 or 10. Do you recall?
Yeah, well, we have Project Blue, which is not even it hasn't been announced by Microsoft officially, but we know it's coming, and it's going to be more of a feature pack, and that's coming late summer of 2013, so call it Windows 8.5. Maybe they'll fix a lot of the user issues, who knows. There's also some rumors about a 7-inch tablet possibly coming, and that the Project Blue might be part of a effort to optimize for 7-inch size screens. It'd be nice if they'd fix the optimization for the existing screen. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Well, what's the existing screen size that it works better with? I thought 7 was kind of pretty. Well, I guess it's 10 normally, right?
I think it's around 10. I can't remember exactly what the Surface screen size is. I know we've talked about it before. I think it's around 10, roughly.
Yeah, I'm surprised that makes that much of a difference. I mean, it's not like 7-inch tablets were a big surprise. As a matter of fact, to being fail Microsoft. Well, I mean, when you think about it, like, for all that this is supposed to be Microsoft pushing something or other, it's surprising that it took Apple to release a 7-inch tablet that they're like, oh yeah, maybe 7-inch tablets are something too.
Yeah, the iPad Mini.
Yeah, it's like way to really look behind the times there, guys.
Yeah, the existing Office suite, using it on a touch interface, people have said that even on the bigger screens, there's issues clicking in cells like in Excel, grids and so forth. Even on 10-inch,
it's almost like those programs don't make any sense to use on a touch screen.
Yeah,
but nah, that's silly.
Well, maybe Office 2014.
It adds even more white space.
Yeah, they expand those cell blocks even wider, so that if you have thumbs that are 14 inches long, wide, you can get around your Excel grids. I don't know, but there are definitely quicker updates coming from Microsoft. They're focusing on services, as they've said, which is fresh and new for them. but makes sense in the changing market of today. And then we have the rumors of Xbox Surface. Maybe this is a 7-inch tablet, or will it be Pro with 4G? Might see some details on that here in 2013. Then on the Windows Phone side, you've got Windows Phone 8 Apollo being the current one, and you would also expect probably quicker updates there. Windows Phone 8.5 is supposed to add virtual private networking. I'm surprised. I thought that would have been in 8. That'll be big for businesses. And then for developers, like yourself, Visual Studio, although you're not a big Visual Studio fan, but Visual Studio.
I don't know. It's probably still one of the better IDEs I've used.
They're going to have more updates, more frequent ones, feature packs added every time, that sort of thing, changing the interface. Those sort of updates over time that Microsoft has never done in the past, so that's new. And some think that this might be because of the departing of Steven Sinofsky, because he didn't like Visual Studio. So there's hope that the focus will be back on the core products instead of some of the more recent additions. And then in the cloud, you've got Windows Azure getting new features monthly almost. Maybe trying out Azure in a box. They briefly thought about this in 2010. Appliance that large customers would have on site. Microsoft would maintain it, the cloud, but the servers were in your building. They may be attempting to revive that in 2013 in the cloud realm. But the big talk, of course, has been CES, and we're going to cut right into that here in the news stories. So let's fire up the news stories and see what's cooking in the tech stew this week.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
First up, just an overview of CES 2013. This has been being held in Nevada, and it's been a big year for 4K. They're pushing onward to 4K. Not so much on the 3D. There's been some who say, hey, it's the death of 3D, but really 3D is becoming more of a back burner feature, it seems, on these sets, and they're focusing on the resolution, smart TV features, if you're into that sort of thing. But,
yeah, and I mean, I would say obviously the 3D has kind of been done. It's not exciting anymore. Like, unless you have a good glasses-free TV, you're not really going to go show, oh, look, I've got a 3D TV, because everyone's going to be like, yeah, well, that would have been awesome last year.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's still pretty cool to do 3D.
Well, I think it's cool, but I'm just saying for a show that's supposed to be demoing all the latest and greatest stuff that's going to be coming out for the year, it's not 3D's not that, Yeah, because you can go pick up a 3D TV, and unless it's something that's not on the shelf right now, it's kind of boring. Insofar as a forward-looking consumer product show it is concerned.
Yeah, CES represents the latest and the greatest, so definitely 3D is not the latest. I still like my 3D, but hey, 4K
I do too.
4K is where it's at. 4K is the
shiny
future.
New thing, and no one's ever going to be using that for the next probably 5 years.
Nah, I don't know about that.
Blu-ray will not work with 5K really, or 4K. Sorry.
Blu-ray will work if you upscale it to 4K.
Yeah, so there you go.
you do have a lot of
TV. They're gonna need a new disc format basically, and I don't think one's ready. I mean, hell, Blu-ray was pretty much ready before HD was particularly common. So, I think that's kind of more on the roadmap. These manufacturers think they're so fancy putting 4K pixels on it, but realistically, there's not really a distribution mechanism in place, and not really one on the horizon I can see either.
Well, at CES, we've seen the first 4K consumer camcorders, 4K players, or upscalers rather, for TVs and such. People say, well, why would you pay, or what about the $12,000 3D or 4K TV that exists here at CES? And well, there were a ton of 12K TVs in that price range back when HD TV first started hitting the market, before CRT was even big. And it's just a natural evolution. It has to go in that direction overall.
And, I mean, I'll say one thing. I am excited for 4K insofar as it might mean that computer monitor displays won't suck anymore. Because, I mean, they were almost at 4K. They were getting there until HD TV took over, and now it's all 1080.
Yeah.
You noticed that yourself. Like, you can't find an affordable monitor that's not 1080. Hell, I don't think you could even find a non-affordable monitor that wasn't 1080. That fancy one you're looking at was 1080, right?
Yeah.
$400.
Yeah. And the one I have now it's a 1920 by 1200 resolution, which, by the way, if my center screen dies on me during the show, it's going to take a moment for me to switch screens. I still haven't changed the main board in the screen yet. I haven't had a chance to. But yeah, I have an older 1920 by 1200, and yeah, you cannot find 1200 resolution on the bottom end there and a new screen very easily, unless you're looking refurbs.
With any luck, at least the 4K quote-unquote revolution will probably bring us desktop monitors that aren't so cramped vertically. So that'll be nice, I suppose.
Yeah, our fonts will get a little smaller, and our eyes will get a little bit harder to see with. But
yeah, well, you know, right. what it's gonna be is it's gonna be like the Retina display, except for your desktop almost. You know. The fonts don't have to get smaller. I mean, they could. 4K is basically twice 1080, so you know they could just basically double the pixels in each direction, and you know double everything, and get corners a little crisper, and you know maybe a little more to play with if you're able to shrink your fonts. But you know it doesn't mean everything's got to be smaller.
Yeah, this is true.
It just means everything can be a little more sane. I mean, honestly. Like, if you've looked at, and, you know, you have because you've got an iPhone and stuff, but if you've looked at, like, the iPhone screens with the, you know, 200 DPI, like, you can really see the small stuff because there's a lot more resolution, and so your eyes can actually pick that up more easily. Like, the problem with shrinking a font on a desktop is that it starts to turn into a blurry gray blob because there just aren't pixels. So where there are pixels, there's a way, I suppose you could say, yeah, obviously you probably won't be able to have the font sizes, but you could probably take them down by 50%. Well, yeah, you know, 25%. You know, and get a little more room to work with. I mean, at 1080, let's face it, at 1080, you've got 1200 high right now on your screen, and that's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
So you know, you could put that on a 4K screen. You can't put that on a 1080 screen. You got to start scaling stuff up. So I think that's one thing to look forward to from the 4K. But you know, you talk about 4K camcorders. Sure, whatever, movies are filmed in 4K. They're not distributed in it, right? And you know, camcorders right now, most video cameras can shoot 1080 at 60 frames per second progressive. You don't see that either. I mean, Blu-ray might support that. I'm not even honestly sure about it. It probably does, but like you get the point. Like that sort of stuff, hard drive, computer displays, and consumer camcorders that want to push that sort of stuff, yeah, they'll support it. The technology is certainly there, but the ability to actually distribute that video is definitely another question. I mean, like already 1080, good quality video over an hour and a half or so movie, you're looking, you know, 2.5 gigs, no problem. So multiply that by 4, and you're at 10 gigabytes for a movie, and that's kind of at the low end of quality without your like 7.1 surround sound and, you know, higher bit rates and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we don't have the greatest pipes in the world out there just yet to support even Blu-ray streaming at its full gamut at this point. At least not generally, unless you're living in Kansas City or.
Mic shut up.
What's that? Are you there?
I think your bandwidth is limited or something because you seem to be getting a bit compressed.
Oh, well, I'm still hearing you loud and clear, so I'm gonna just roll.
Okay.
I think we're okay. See, we're talking about bandwidth, and the bandwidth people apparently
exactly can't even make a podcast. So let's get that 4K video up and running.
So yeah, we're gonna move on to the the first big topic here from CES, and that was that was the mysterious partnership between Microsoft and Samsung seems to be emerging. A little bit of an Xbox showing here at CES, although not quite the next Xbox, it appears. A Looney room was demonstrated, and here is a image of a Looney room technology, and as you can see, there are Pico projectors around the edge of the TV which project an image, the rest of the image, if you will, expanded out so you can see more of the epic scenery in a shooter, for instance. And Microsoft claims a Looney room is proof of concept system, but the fit and finish of its promotional video, which is playing right now, compared to the low production quality of a typical Microsoft research video, makes some people think otherwise. The footage shown here is exactly what people have seen in labs without any special effects being added. This was Microsoft's Chief Technology Strategy Officer, Eric Rutter. He joined the Samsung keynote when they showcased the Looney room technology today, in fact. The demonstration starts with this actor commanding the Xbox to go big, with a projection showing an Xbox console scanning the room before images are projected. And Microsoft didn't explain why it chose to demo this with Samsung, but the company has previously worked together on Pixel Sense tables and components for the Microsoft Surface tablet. So they're using Pico projectors in this little setup here. And Redmond's fascination with augmented reality and Kinect has been well documented, and there have been hints of this in the past. Various projects, some called Holodeck, Holodesk, Beamatron, and so forth. So I don't know. It looks like this could be the next Kinect, perhaps. And depending on how well these Pico projectors are, could be interesting.
Next Kinect insofar as it looks cool, but no one really comes up with something worthwhile enough to really justify buying it for anyone that's kind of casual.
Not for the casual, but if you're like me and you have Kinect, and I'd jump on that bandwagon.
It's an accessory that you can buy that's kind of cool, I guess.
I mean, but look at some of the shooter sequences. If it really looks that good on your walls, assuming you can black out the room to such a depth that it will look that way, which I have a little hard time believing that it's going to be that bright from a Pico projector.
I think there's no way. I've seen those.
It would have to be the darkest room imaginable, and you would have to have some pretty what would be the right word? Non-glaring surfaces that don't generate glare, that sort of thing.
I mean, is it compatible with other projectors?
It doesn't. There's no details on that, of course, yet.
I mean, I'd guess probably, but I don't know. Seems, I guess it's fun. I mean, since realistically it's not really a product, it sounds like something where you can just kind of hook it up and it does a thing, like it's a little software update feature checkbox. I think it's cool for that, but I don't know if it'd be worth buying like I don't know how many projectors you'd need. I guess maybe just one.
Well, they're going around the perimeter of the TV, so there have to be. It looks like I can't tell if those are speakers.
Well, no, they can't be going around the perimeter of the TV because it couldn't project on that shelf next to it. I mean, think about it. Like, it's on that. That shelf comes out in front of the TV, so it's projecting on the side. It would not be able to get like on that picture in the shelf.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, some people have suggested they're on the perimeter, but
yeah,
I don't know. Well, if it's on the back wall, then how's it getting around the front of the the shelves that are out more from the back wall? You would think
I'm saying
like
behind the camera that's filming the video.
I mean, that wouldn't make much sense to me either, because the TV screen is meant to be the center of what you're focusing on, and it's not really going to change. You'll still have your TV, and then it extends outward from that. So to me, it seems more likely that it would be somewhere near the TV. And they talk about a series of them. I don't know. We'll find out probably later this year at E3, I would imagine, along with the new Xbox. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but even more interesting, or perhaps I don't know. I don't know if more interesting is the word, but certainly groundbreaking, or possibly something that bombs this year at the same time. Some new tablets have been appearing at CES. The Edge gaming tablet is the first one. This guy is called the Razer Edge, and it plays. It uses Windows 8, Steam compatible. It has a GeForce GT 640M LE video card. An i7 processor is available as one of the options. Integrated controller in the more expensive one. 1366 by 768 display. It'll run you about $9.99 for the Core i5 version, and you can add an Xbox controller to that one pretty easily. $12.99 for the Edge Pro i7, bigger hard drive. $14.99 for the one with the gamepad and case. The gamepad alone is supposed to be $249. External HDMI, USB, keyboard. It has only about a 1 hour gaming life, 2 hours of general use. And they have some extended battery options. And here's a little video segment. No sound. It weighs about 4 pounds, so you would be getting a workout if you're not sitting with the thing on your lap, apparently.
I've got to say, what a remarkable fail. You're saying $1,000?
Yeah. Well, that's for the i5, and we're only talking about a GT 640M LE.
Yeah, so it's starting at $1,000, all right, and it's got game controllers attached to it. Fine. You know what I can do for $1,000 without exaggeration? I could buy an Xbox 360, controllers, and a friggin' TV.
Yeah, but here they're selling. Well, they're selling portability here, so.
Okay, fair enough. But I'm just saying, like, I mean, a little perspective now. $1,000 will buy you that. And this portability, I mean, can you call an hour of gaming battery life portability? Like, seriously, that's pathetic.
Yeah, especially when you consider the benchmarks on this video card that it comes with. It has 96 shaders. On a desktop 670 series, you could get 1,000 plus. Just as an example.
I mean, it's low-end hardware. I guess the i5 is not technically low-end hardware, but Intel's i series crap is indecipherable without knowing the part number. So hard to say on that. But I mean, good grief, is that price point so far off what that thing is worth? It's not even. Like, you can't even dual purpose it as a tablet because it gets 2 hours of battery life as a tablet. Like a laptop, a gaming laptop will get better battery life than that too.
Well, we have the
touchscreen laptop.
We have the Surface Pro, and that guy is $899 is the expected starting price with an Intel i5, and it will have a 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is a lot better than this thing. But it only has an Intel HD Graphics 4000. Basically, your on-chip graphics, and not the greatest 3D ability from a Surface, but you know, nonetheless, it's $899. You can get a better resolution Surface, anyways. But then we got the counter to this, of course, is this guy right here, and that would be announced was the NVIDIA Shield. Yeah, and this guy only has a 5-inch multi-touch 1280 by 720 pixel display. Of course, that's less resolution than the Edge, but this isn't a tablet per se.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, it's a lot smaller screen size, a little more portable. It's what you're going to get.
Yeah, get your Xbox 360 type controller with dual control sticks, you know, a la PS3, I guess, there, or PlayStation. Multiple control buttons and a direction pad. It uses NVIDIA's latest Tegra 4 quad-core processor, and that guy only has 72 shader processors. And it's running Jelly Bean mobile OS with access to the Google Play Store and Gmail. NVIDIA will also have its own Tegra Zone gaming store for this. It's capable of outputting a 4K video signal to HD TVs as well. And the Project Shield device has a micro SD slot, one USB, and a standard 1/8-inch audio jack. It's still in the prototype phase, but it's capable of streaming games from a PC that has a graphics card that is Kepler and that's a 650 series or higher. Gamers will be able to play both PC and Android games on the device, so you can enjoy Angry Birds at 4K resolution, or you might be able to play some good PC games, maybe on medium settings.
I gotta wonder, man, what 4K out of 72, was it shaders?
72 shader processors. 72
I mean, that's
core.
Even at high speed. That's the fill rate on 4K is ridiculous. I just can't. I'm just shocked to think that.
Unless it's upscaled. Maybe it's upscaled and we're not really dealing with native 4K.
Honestly, that makes the most sense.
The game isn't 4K per se. You know how Xbox 360 had games for a while that weren't technically, 1080p, but they would upscale to 1080p. Your Xbox would read 1080p.
That makes a great deal of sense. Good call on that, because there's just no way.
With a 72 like core processor.
I mean, when you consider that 4K has got just 4,000 by 2,000, right? It's got 8 million pixels. So I mean, you've got to be pushing serious data to handle that,
It's kind of funny. We have 32 megapixel cameras at this point, and our TVs are still only 8 megapixel at the best.
Here's the trick. How long does it take to capture those 32 megapixels? Like those same 32 megapixel cameras will only capture video at like 10 frames per second and 8 megapixel, because they can't pull the pixels off the sensor fast enough, and that's always really the trick, getting the data in and out fast enough. I/O and stuff like that. Sort of the same way like when you have dual channel RAM versus non-dual channel RAM. It's all just about how much data you can shove around, and that's just kind of what it comes down to. Because it's like, all right, 8 megapixels doesn't sound that fancy, but multiply it by 3 for each color bit, and multiply it by 60 for frames per second, and you've got 1.5 gigabytes per second. So that would saturate 10 gigabit Ethernet, that connection of uncompressed video in 4K. So there's your little bit of perspective right there of just how much data has to get shoved through to display on a 4K screen, and all that. So it's not a big number until you start multiplying it by a frame rate, and then it starts to get pretty tough to work with.
Yeah, we're seeing the evolution of it all. Maybe next we'll start seeing some quantum computers to help deal with the overload, and maybe not the bandwidth overload, but the quantum computing, and hitting that. What is the point called when computing power has reached its limit where it doubles every year?
Moore's law?
Yeah, that's it, Moore's law.
Yeah,
I think we're supposed to be pretty close to that right now.
We got, we're supposed to be pretty close to that. I am still surprised that that's hanging in there as effectively it has. But yeah, I think that one, I mean, honestly, Intel's still ramping up another couple processes, so I think we probably have another good, probably 6 years on it easy, like just on the table right now being planned. Off the top of my head, it could only be 2 more generations on Intel's part, but yeah, I mean, it's still going surprisingly well. And the other thing we have to keep in mind with Moore's law is that right now about the only thing that's really hitting those process levels are your desktop processors, and basically every other fab is just devoted to making micro SD cards, and that's only slightly a joke. A lot of the high-end process capability is really just dumping up flash as fast as possible. So I think probably what we're really going to see in the next couple of years is maybe a little less innovation and just a little more bulking up of manufacturing capabilities. So your run-of-the-mill microprocessors, support chips, and all that sort of stuff is going to get scaled back then to some of the smaller sizes, and that'll still make performance improvements. Like I don't think none of the low-end tablets are made on anything near state-of-the-art processes. They're all relatively cheap from China, and it impacts battery life, but not that much. So There's still room in that regard of just a little more leveraging of the technologies that are here right now and things that haven't been shrunk yet for them. So
faster SSDs and bigger SSDs is what I'm looking forward to. I think we're up to about 512 on an SSD right now. I was looking into that.
Terabyte, but I forget if that's really available in any practical sense or not.
I would totally be on to that if it wasn't $2 a gig.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
I thought they were down to 50 cents, but you know,
yeah, they are.
It's 50 cents still burns pretty bad. So
512 was $280, I believe, somewhere in there. I think I found a 512. It's still not quite big enough for what I would want to use it for.
The thing that's kind of interested me about flash drives is just that what's actually kind of holding them back as much is like software and the controller chips. You know, that's kind of, I was a little bit surprised by that. You know, you'd think in this day and age we've gotten to the point where we're pretty good at the whole software and controller chips business, but you know, they haven't only really recently have there emerged enough solid controllers out that you could really safely, and only to a limited degree safely still, run off an SSD.
Well, the SSD thing for a lot of flight simmers would be to run your partition where you have flight sim running right off of there, because the load times on flight sim, if you have a ton of add-on scenery, can be pretty oppressive, and SSD would certainly make it load a lot quicker. So that's the exciting prospect. And some people are even doing it now, even with the smaller drives. But I'd like a bigger drive just to kind of chunk it over there. I like having flight sim on one drive and just go with it now and into the future. So not long off, but let's move on to the next topic here, and that was at CES was Chevy's MyLink with smartphone flexibility was showcased at Las Vegas. And basically this was a new version of software that runs in the Chevy, in this case the Chevy Impala. At CES 2013 they demonstrated some new abilities of the user interface. They have 4 quick access areas to functions such as navigation. Drivers will be able to save up to 4 icons to an upper strip on the interface. The icons will remain static as the driver goes into different functions such as music playback, menus, and so forth. They have favorites that take the place of radio favorites, and a driver can save virtually anything in the system to one of the 60 available favorites, such as phone numbers, destinations, radio stations. The favorites initially appear as numbers, but drivers can customize each button. And this interface controls the features Chevy initially rolled out with MyLink, such as Bluetooth hands-free calling and digital audio. The system comes with updated navigation maps, which are stored on the system's flash drive. The new version of MyLink will come out on the 2014 Chevy Impala later this year. And this guy basically interfaces with your smartphone and via Bluetooth, and you can push a button, as you'll see in the video, and the screen goes back into it disappears, and you have a glove compartment basically behind it where you can store your phone, for instance. And the screen becomes a representation for your smartphone screen, which I think it looks pretty cool. When I got my Chevy Equinox, it did not have this option, of course. Had Bluetooth hands-free calling, which is great. And even this little MyLink system, it shows up in the center where you're driving, so you don't have to look all the way over to the right. Kind of innovative there. So if you're getting an Impala this year, you'll get MyLink if you add that into your option package. The other story here was 3D printers were pretty big this year. CubeX was demonstrated. The 3D Systems has introduced a new higher-end desktop 3D printer, the CubeX, with technical specs that puts it in a direct competition with MakerBot's Replicator 2 and the forthcoming Replicator 2X 3D printers. This guy starts at $24.99. Not too bad. I'll buy a couple of those. The CubeX boasts a 10.8 by 10.45 by 9.5 inch build area dwarfing that of MakerBot's Replicator 2, which is 11.2 by 6 by 6.1 inches. While you'll soon be able to purchase a 2-color capable Replicator 2X from MakerBot, 3D Systems will offer this CubeX in both 2 and 3 color options. The price of the 3-color CubeX is a whopping $3,999. 2-color model you can have for $3,249, and that might be high compared with the $2,799 2-color Replicator 2X, but it's potentially setting CubeX apart with its ability to print objects made from both ABS and PLA plastic, 2 of the most common desktop 3D printing materials. And so CubeX looks kind of interesting. Here's a couple shots of this new device and some things it's printed. Hey, model rockets, there we go. Get some, build some custom-made rockets that are, what, 11 inches high?
Yeah, exactly. But they got sweet fins.
Yeah. 3 colors too, no less. Or, well, 2, I guess, in this example.
Yeah.
Yeah, the CubeX has the same cartridge-based plastic loading system as the more mainstream Cube printer, as well as the same touchscreen panel interface with the USB-based printing. Unlike the Cube, the CubeX allows for printing over a direct USB connection. 3D Systems also says it will support the CubeX with the same recycling program for plastic and plastic cartridges as it will with the Cube, offering mail-in service as well as drop-off meetup events in New York and San Francisco. And that is that guy. And then we roll on to the 4K area. Samsung UN85S9. Get your pre-orders ready. It's an 85-inch 4K TV. This image, it doesn't look like it's 85, but it is. It is housed in a frame that looks like an easel, and the TV can be tilted up and down. And it was noted that the frame is not removable. Why? Why would they do that to us?
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's hard to put speakers around this thing if you got this kludgy little frame going on. The frame has a 120-watt 2.2 speaker system. The Smart Hub software, S recommendation voice control. The set is powered by a 1.35 gigahertz quad-core A15 processor. Pricing unknown. It offers Samsung Smart View for connectivity, streams content between the TV and a Samsung mobile device, and All Share now has been extended to incorporate Samsung smart appliances, enabling monitor of air conditioners and washing machines right from your TV screen. So when your load is done, your TV will tell you.
I am not normally a big fan. I probably wouldn't use that, but I do have to say that's kind of an awesome feature.
I do like the idea that it will tell you if your load is done, because I don't always hear the beep. So
yeah, exactly.
You want to get it. If you got to do a lot of loads in one night and you want to know right away to get them rolling, that's pretty great, I guess, if you have a Samsung smart equipped washer or dryer. The other big thing was Lenovo and their Horizon. This is the Horizon 27-inch coffee table thingamajig. It's called the Horizon Table PC. And this is a desktop tablet hybrid. The size of the Horizon alone makes it harder to confuse it for a giant tablet, for one thing. Lenovo also wants customers to think the 27-inch multi-touch Horizon not so much as a semi-portable desktop, battery life being 2 hours, but instead a multi-user device. So Horizon is a Windows 8 based PC. On top of Microsoft's new operating system, they have added their own multi-user interface called Aurora. Aurora is integrated deeply into the operation of Horizon. Drop the screen down to its tabletop style flat mode, say that a few times, and Aurora pops up automatically, presenting you with a relatively intuitive software control wheel from which you can launch various touch-supported applications, such as music, video, and so forth. And the games are big here. They have air hockey, 4-player shooting game, and it looks like a lot of board games, casino-style games. Here's some of the video clip here of it. Lenovo will offer its own app store, and it says Electronic Arts, EA Sports sub-brand, and Ubisoft have been committed to make Horizon-based games. So they're really pushing the home game, board game, really, when you think about it. Virtual cards, virtual Monopoly, and so forth. Now, some of the early demos of this guy said it was a little bit sluggish. The $9.99 price tag is what it would be for a model with ultra low voltage version of the Intel Core's i3 chip, and it gives you some input accessories and the 27-inch screen. It's 1.1 inches thick. That's kind of impressive, and 17.8 pounds in weight. Don't drop that one on your feet.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I appreciate it's big, but normally you don't hear them spec that much.
Yeah, I think maybe they're targeting casinos here too. You can see they're demonstrating some casino games, and that was where some of the demos said, "Hey, you know, this was a little bit sluggish. I can't see me using this for a casino game because it's not rolling too quickly, not responding right away to finger." Pushes and so forth, presses.
Yeah.
And next up we have what's next? Next we have the Valve Steambox. They made some news at CES. Gabe Newell told The Verge that the Steambox will be in the form of projects. The first, codenamed Bigfoot, focuses on the hardware for use in the home, with a TV, including standards like Miracast to stream games to different screens. The second, codenamed Littlefoot, more with mobile. Newell also described 3 quality levels of Steambox, which would be good, better, or best. He mentioned even things like Netflix on Steambox, Steambox becoming or being a server, PC serving multiple monitors over time. In fact, serving up 8 simultaneous game calls from one PC, 8 TVs, 8 controllers, and having great performance down the road. Steambox called Bigfoot internally, of course. But and related to this, Valve partner XI3's Steambox codename Piston had some early pictures. Here's one of them. Get a look at the back end of that. They brought an early version of the Piston to CES, but was tight-lipped on the details of hardware currently in development.
A lot of connectors on the back there.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty awesome, though, when you think about it. I mean, they crammed it all into one little cube, which is probably only about 4 inches high.
Yeah, let's see. They have 2 X8 SATAs.
eSATA, double eSATA. We got
4 USB.
4 USB, yeah.
HDMI. Ethernet. I don't know what's going on with those USBs. Like,
yeah,
those 2 have lightning bolts next to them. Oh, those 4 have lightning bolts, I should say. And I guess one's keyboard, one's mouse. But those other 2 are mysterious. They look like the eSATA ports. Maybe they are. Maybe there's 4 eSATA ports, which would be a little bit silly, but okay. HDMI, obviously, power in, and I can't figure out what those other 2 next to the HDMI are.
We got display port / HDMI. We've got those look like not display port. There's the other new one. That's what those 2 look like. So we've got what, 3 outputs for video? I think.
They just put
3.
as many connectors on as they could, but yeah.
I guess analog audio.
Port in theory drive 2 displays as well.
Yeah.
So I guess you could put 4 displays on it.
That's maybe where they get at least 4 of the 8.
Maybe that's where they have 4 of everything. You have a display, a hard drive, and a USB 3 thing for each thing. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's going to offer 1 terabyte of internal storage and offer modular component updates, including the option to upgrade the PC's CPU and RAM too. They wouldn't discuss the price, but commented that the Steambox is based on its performance level X7A offering, which is priced at $999. And they declined to comment on what would differentiate the Piston hardware-wise from a standard X7A. And They also offer an entry-level X5A, that's at $499 with Linux. There's some Linux for you there.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting news. Actually, I'm kind of a little bit interested to see that. Which was the one, the first gaming tablet thing for $1,000 we talked about was
that was the Edge store.
Yeah, because I was kind of interested to see that this, because obviously this was kind of coming out, and I'm just a bit surprised that they are. I mean, maybe it was 6 1/2 dozen, kind of partnering with the Windows 8 tablet scene when they seem to be kind of interested in moving to the Linux area of stuff. But I mean, it does make sense. A lot of their games are going to be Windows only still, so I guess that was the plan.
Yeah, and it's a display port, or mini display port rather. Those are two mini display ports. So you've got 3 display port ability and 1 HDMI, or either or on the one. So that's one of many prototypes they're showing off at CES. It's just one. So they're getting there. And the next guy here is the talk of touch-enabled Ultrabooks to require touch and retail for $599 by the end of 2013. Intel says that by the end of 2013, $599 touch-enabled Ultrabook laptops will be on the market, and that devices will be required to support touch input. But that's not all, folks. Intel is also promising functional all-day battery life, but not while you're gaming, I'm sure. If this is all true, we're looking at a lower-priced PC market with prices matching tablets with touch capabilities, and the line between Ultrabook and tablet is becoming ever less clear. And it implies a lower-priced PC market with machines that formerly retailed for around $1,000 or more will be declining to price points that mirror current tablets, not laptops. Oh my goodness, laptops. Ultrabooks are going to invade the space and have been reserved for tablets, with the addition of touch capabilities, and here we go. So they say that's coming later in 2013. Ultrabooks with touch for $599, and Ultrabooks with touch to convert to tablets for $799. That one could be interesting later this year. The other one at CES was Polaroid's Jelly Bean tablets at CES. Making a comeback is Polaroid, perhaps? I don't know. CES Polaroid announced 2 new Android tablets that look to compete with Google's Goog Nexus devices. M7 7-inch 129 dual-core processor, 8 gig of storage, 1280 by 800 pixel IPS displays, 2 megapixel front-facing camera, micro SD, Android 4.1. Then they have the M10. It's a little bit bigger. It's a 10-inch, 229 quad-core CPU in this one, 16 gig of memory, 5 megapixel rear camera, and 1280 by 800 resolution, same as the other one, with the 2 megapixel front-facing camera. They'll be released in the spring. The screens look a lot like RT tiles. This is the Polaroid interface. Back in December, they had leaked images and specs that look like they may be doing cameras again, even though I don't think they're supposed to be or weren't planning on it. The first Android camera with interchangeable lenses. No official name yet. They tentatively named it IM1836 camera. Will feature an 18.1 megapixel sensor, 3.5 inch touchscreen, pop-up flash, Wi-Fi, HDMI, and Android 4. And so that's new news for Polaroid. Thought defunct and bankrupt? Not quite. And then we roll on with low-cost Apple iPhone. Is Apple developing a low-cost version of its iPhone? And a rumor from DigiTimes made its way to the Wall Street Journal. Some thought they were going to make a cheaper iPhone targeted at the developing world with polycarbonate plastic instead of the aluminum housing and recycled parts. But this, in an interview with China's Shanghai Evening News, Apple's Senior Vice President of Marketing Phil Schiller insists the company is not planning to develop a cheap consumer phone. So that was shot down. But, yeah, it didn't really... I didn't think it... A lot of people didn't think it would make much sense to develop a cheaper iPhone.
I mean, keep in mind that quote-unquote cheaper, the whole thing probably cost them about $250 to make. I was actually kind of surprised. I saw the, you know, I mean, you look at, like, the Galaxy 3 now that has, like, an iPod competitor, running $200, and you realize that the phone, which is basically the same product except it has a cell radio in it, is $500. You realize that these cell phones are just ridiculously high margin products, and I mean, making it out of plastic literally would not be worth the money. That the aluminum body costs nothing to Apple. Like, it's free, basically. You know, might add $3 to the cost. They're marking it up $300.
Well, that plus they have like the cheaper, older model iPhones that are
right, exactly, that
less expensive to begin with. But they have done cheaper hardware for some in the tech industry and gaming. Sony released the slim version of its consoles. They released 2 slim versions of the PSP. We had a Microsoft slim version of the Xbox 360. I don't know if those are really cheaper. Well, I guess they were a little bit cheaper.
No, I mean, keep in mind that stuff like the Xbox 360 is running with no margin. What I'm saying is, like, you're looking at the iPhone literally half the cost, or maybe more, or maybe I guess as low as 40%, is just going into Apple's pocket. Like, the manufacturing costs, and I think that's the high estimate. Like, I think if you look at 60%, that might not include the R&D, that might just be the physical hardware. But the point is, about half the money that you pay for an iPhone is going into Apple's bank account. Like, it doesn't pay any of the production costs of the phone. Like, that's covered by the other 50%. So, like, the idea that they would scrimp and save to produce it $20 cheaper is pretty silly, because all they have to do is just literally price it $20 cheaper and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's not to say that they wouldn't make it cheaper and seem cheaper and be cheaper just so that they could, you know, cut back their profit margin and have like a low-end version which is not fancy Apple version and therefore not what you want to pay for. But you know, just keep in mind that saving $10 manufacturing the sucker is not meaningful to the price of the end product unless they're using it again to make it less fashionable.
Yeah, that they also talked about there being an iPhone shuffle, and there's an image of it. I don't have it here, but if you can imagine an iPhone that's only like an inch wide, why? You know, I don't know. Maybe some people would buy that, but certainly not me. This iPhone 4S has a small enough screen as it is, and even the iPhone 5 screen isn't that big compared to some of the newer phones out there around the iPhone, you know, other brands.
Yeah, I mean, the Galaxy boat too.
Yeah, Galaxy, definitely.
But the iPod shuffles never really interested me either. I've never quite understood the appeal of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's nice and cheap compared to the other ones, but it's kind of like,
why put just 2 songs on? I'm exaggerating, but put 2 songs on your device when you could put the whole enchilada on there.
Well, to me, it's like, it's not going to be your music player. Like, it's not going to be that. Like, is it your workout player? Fair enough, but you know, at the same time, why not just go cut to the chase and buy like the iPod that you want and strap that to your arm or something? I don't know. Never quite got that iPhone shuffle. Bizarre to me.
Yeah.
I mean, why not get a track phone? You know, why not get a jitterbug? Like, isn't that kind of what that's like? You know, jitterbug, it's got the 2 buttons on it for old people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, the whole point of an iPhone, what really defined it was that it was a smartphone. You could browse the web and crap. So that's a strange one. I guess we'll see if that pans out.
Well, another interesting one that has just appeared is that Amazon is introducing AutoRip. A new service called AutoRip gives customers who have bought CDs or buy CDs a free copy of the album in MP3, 256K rate, added to the Amazon's cloud player. And if you don't know anything about the cloud player, don't worry, they'll show you how to do that. But more than 50,000 albums are already in the program, and more being added all the time. If you've bought a CD anywhere since going back to 1998 and you have an account that was purchased under, and it's one of those CDs, you can get the MP3s for free. Yeah, that is if you're still even in this. What's a CD? I just don't know.
Yeah, who knows, man?
But there are some people out there that still use CDs, and for them, this is a pretty good option to have that.
Well, I mean, let's face it. If you're gonna buy the music, since Amazon shipping is often something like free, you might as well. At that point, instead of going and buying it on the Amazon Music service, you might as well buy the disc. It'll probably cost you like $2 more or something, and then you get the physical disc to put in a envelope in case you want to rip high quality or something.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to some more mainstream news. Actually, I'm going to jump to that of good old MS Messenger. Microsoft is to shut down Messenger on March 15th. Most of the world will say goodbye to Microsoft Messenger on March 15th. That's the date the service will be shut down everywhere except mainland China. Microsoft announced it was retiring Messenger in favor of Skype back in November. Current Messenger users will be migrated over to Skype. And despite this claim that Messenger service will be shut down on the 15th, Peter Bright was actually able to confirm that the service shutdown will actually take place over the next year, and only the Windows Live Messenger application is disappearing immediately. So it's definitely going the way of the dodo here, but so if you switch to Skype and you get a message, you might not find out that you had a message for about 3 or 4 months, because the Skype desktop interface messaging portion is just terrible. That's my opinion, but half the time I have messages on there and I don't realize I had them, and I don't know, maybe they'll work on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a messaging application, so definitely an interesting move, since they don't seem to have bulked that up too much either. So
yeah, nothing has really changed. Oh, they have the Metro version that we talked about, I think, a while back or a couple weeks ago. But the other story was that Samsung won't launch Windows RT tablets in the U.S. They're blaming confusion and weak demand, and that's pretty much the gist of that one. You're not going to see RT from Samsung, at least not at this point. Maybe due to poor educating of the consumers on that of Windows RT is some of the theories here, but Samsung is not willing to bring the Windows RT tablets to market with the compromises it would need to make it hit lower price point expected from RT tablets. They say we didn't necessarily attain the price point that we hoped to attain, so they're not completely abandoning the U.S. market with its ATIV products. They've been selling the ATIV Smart PC with Windows 8 at AT&T retail stores since November, and it announced the availability of the ATIV Odyssey smartphone for Verizon Wireless. So yeah, I'm not completely shocked with this one. RT.
Yeah, I like a little bit, but I think what it just comes down to is they probably butted heads with Microsoft, because I think they have a tendency, like all the patent suit crap aside, I mean, it's pretty clear that they want to be a little bit like Apple with their high markup, high-end products, and I think that probably what Microsoft wants and what they want in that regard is just not really compatible. Is kind of the impression I'm getting from that. Like they can't make it look all sleek and whatever. It's always going to look all tiley and stuff. And
well, the fact is too that RT has been kind of not a very good performer with the Tegra 3 processor. There's rumors that there might be a Tegra 4 version of the RT coming out from Microsoft as well, maybe this year. Possibility of that, but I think the 7-inch was more likely in the existing line. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to say a big prediction for 2013 when we were talking about prediction was that RT would basically die, but that's probably a little bit strong at this point. I think it will probably evolve, perhaps.
It's really hard to say because I know Microsoft wants it really bad, and what Microsoft wants, Microsoft still has a tendency of getting, just due to their size. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to pin that one down, you know.
Yeah, and would that be the death of RT or Metro rather? If RT died, would Metro die with it? Probably not, because it's still in the x86, x64 version, right? I mean, that was my thinking. Just that the pure ARM processor.
The Windows RT API, the WinRT API, because Windows RT is the version, is something that Microsoft is pushing in a big way, and I don't blame them for it, though it's really a bit questionable whether or not that will ever really supplant Win32's APIs. But, I mean, I think the only real question is, does it make sense to have a low-end version of Windows? And I do kind of think that one's going to fall apart for them, just because it doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, honestly, I hate to be a bit conspiracy theory about it, but I think the only reason they put out the Windows RT version realistically is probably to confuse consumers right now for the first year, and then they're going to unify it for Windows 9, and everyone's going to be like, oh, well, my crappy thing won't run Office, whatever, because... or it won't run X because it's, Windows RT. Who knew what the hell that meant? You know, and then when they're wise to it, they'll go try the proper version, and Windows RT will disappear. That's kind of my conspiracy theory guess for Windows RT for 2013, moving on 14.
It offered a cheaper input into the tablet world, but performance is just not
but it didn't have
there.
to. I mean, keep that in mind. Like, Windows is $100 and basically free on a laptop because they install crapware on it. And so remember that we already start with ad-supported Windows on anyway. We talked about that a while back. So realistically, the cost to the tablet is nil. Like, it's free. So the only reason they're doing it is to segment the market, and realistically probably to trick people. And the reason why I say that in particular is because that's what really you saw a lot of the netbook market was. That's why it took off the way it did. That's why Microsoft entered it, because originally it was supposed to be a cheap Linux box, and Microsoft realized if they put Windows on it, they could get some cheap Windows sales that people would later on have to repurchase because the computer was so underpowered. And I think that they're trying to replicate that with Windows RT.
Well, you also have the iPad, which doesn't run OS X apps, so you have the parallel with RT not being able to run standard, Win32, x86, x64 applications. People will say, well, the iPad can't run OS X, but,
Yeah, but I think people expect a lot less from OS X in terms of running applications. There aren't basically games for it. What there are is usually outdated and or runs kind of crappily. Like,
you better watch what you say there. Some of the Mac fans out there will be
I appreciate Mac for the platform that it is, but I mean,
that's true.
I don't think people go into Mac expecting that their ActiveX controls work. It's a much more Apple-y platform where most of your apps are going to be first party. So I think that when you move to the iOS stuff, all right, yeah, you're not running Safari Desktop, but now you're running Safari iOS, and I think that transition holds for a lot of the other stuff that people tend to run on their computers, and I think the expectation for Microsoft is a very different one, where you install WinRAR, or run Office and install Program X and Program Y, AutoCAD and SolidWorks. Good luck with that, obviously, but Windows is a much more third-party software environment than OS X is, and I think that's kind of what people would come to expect from Windows, and they'll obviously not be getting it. So I don't really think that... I think that there's going to be whether or not it's intentional, I think it's probably at least a little bit intentional, a bait and switch going on with Windows RT, where people are going to buy it thinking like, oh, well, I could buy the iPad, but it wouldn't run my apps, so I'll buy the Windows tablet, because that'll run my apps, and then, of course, obviously, it doesn't run their apps.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a lot of what's going on, because, as I said, I mean, keep in mind that realistically, the existence of, with the exception of ARM processors, granted, all right, but Windows RT is full-on Windows, just with a few restrictions thrown in. Like, there's not realistically a significant difference, and you can tell because, I mean, good God, look at the install size on those tablets, right? I mean, the Windows RT install was like 12 gigabytes. I mean,
it left you with about 16 gig of free space or
right.
Plus.
I mean, so it's obviously pretty much desktop Windows, except you can only run Windows RT on it. So, you know, when you see restrictions like that, they're artificially segmenting the market, and you ask yourself why. Is it really just hardware performance or something like that? And, you know, I don't think so. I think they're trying to use the Windows name to get people to basically trick people into buying a tablety thing and make it all tablety for them, and ultimately have them realize that they still need to buy a desktop, and that wasn't the trick. But at this point, they've bought their RT tablet and aren't going to go be like, oh, well, you know, this doesn't do what I need, so I'm going to buy an iPod and or an iPad and a desktop now, because that's actually what I need for work. They're going to keep their Windows RT tablet, and they're going to buy their laptop desktop to do their work on. So I believe that is the goal, but we shall see. I just don't think that it realistically makes any sense for Microsoft to have Windows RT aside from the ARM chip business, but since they're already releasing x86 tablets anyway, I don't really see why that would be a driving factor.
Yeah. Well, we're going to roll forward here into outside of tablets, and we're going to jump into science. Weird science. Well, not weird. But the first story is that the latest findings are that there are 17 billion Earth-size worlds in our galaxy alone. The team, led by Francois Fresin of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, used the latest data from NASA's Kepler mission to find that 1 in 6 stars have a planet 0.8 to 1.25 in size the diameter. Let's start that over again. They found that 1 in 6 stars have a planet 0.8 to 1.25 times the size of Earth in an orbit of 85 days or less. So Gizmodo went out and they tried to make some predictions here on what this could possibly mean, and worth an interesting little discussion here. They say that if, let's say, 1% of those planets actually had developed actual life because the various combinations of just the right locations in the solar system need to exist, leaving us with 1,700,000 worlds bubbling with life forms. And it's probably more probable that these worlds would have a variety of organisms, but let's be a little bit pessimistic here and suppose that only 1% of those Earth-sized worlds have developed complex animals. And then we're at 17,000 Earths of 3-headed monkeys or 2-headed elephants. And then assume 1% of those planets' animals have evolved so much that they've developed civilization similar to ours. That's about 170. It's still pretty interesting when you think about it, if that was actually anywhere near what it might be. And you can go out even further and you can look at the entire universe of 500 billion galaxies too. But 1% could be overestimating. They may not have the right atmosphere. You need at least, say, 5 elements for organic material to form. All kinds of combinations could bring these numbers way down. But nonetheless, in terms of size and possibly location in the right location, that's quite a few Earth-sized worlds in our galaxy that we have to find. And then we just need to find a way to get there. And there's probably a good way to get there, and that's why an engineer is petitioning the White House to study the possibility of building a real-life Starship Enterprise, like the fictional vessel in Star Trek. The proposal was submitted through the White House official We the People channel, which promises an administration response to any petition that gathers at least 25,000 signatures. Just last month, the petition to build a Death Star was put out, and the Enterprise proposal comes from an engineer who goes by the name BTE Dan, who detailed plans for this life-size flyable Starship Enterprise on his website last year. He says we have it within our technological reach, the ability to build the first generation of the USS Enterprise. And the petition had 3,335 signatures, and it needed about 21,000 more to go. And this is a diagram showing what it would have. 100 megawatt laser, spaceport doors, elevators, gravity wheel, warehouses, telescopes and sensors, impulse engines, passive storm shelters, and argon propellant tanks. But NASA is actually working on that 100-year Starship program to work towards getting to the first star within 100 years. So the Enterprise could be built, and BTE Dan argues that with this type of construction, the motivational benefits would match its scientific paybacks. Could it collectively inspire people on Earth more than seeing the Enterprise being built in space? The ship could go on amazing missions like taking the first humans to Mars while taking along a large load of base building equipment for constructing the first permanent base there. I thought that was rather interesting.
Sure. I mean, I guess as far as these spammy proposals go, it's maybe slightly more interesting than some other ones. I mean, you know, all these are like, what are you going to power that with? Good luck with that. You know, I mean,
well,
that's
I think
kind of where the technology is just not there.
We're not talking about warp drive engines. We're talking about
impulse engines.
Engines. We're
even still,
thrusters. It would take a long time. It'd still take 6 months to get to Mars, but hey, you would do it with the Enterprise, right?
I guess that's cool.
Imagine the Enterprise arriving at Mars. I think it would be cool, but it would be interesting to see if they would respond and give the cost for this one. That would be interesting. It would be interesting to see them build anything in space that was huge and massive, not just the Enterprise, but a real spaceship built in space.
Yeah.
And have a space dock.
Wasn't the spaceship? Wasn't the Enterprise not built in space anyway? I mean, let's
well, that depends which movie you watch. If you watch the new Star Trek movie from a couple years ago, they had it being built. I think it was in Iowa on the ground. But if you go back to the Star Trek motion picture, I believe that was built in space.
Yeah, but see, that's the old canon. That's old now.
Yeah, it's true. That's our grandfather's Star Trek. That's not ours.
That crap never happened.
So. Let's see. How are we doing on time here? We're at
hella long. I
believe that's what I thought too. We're gonna jump into that of some flight stew. The fun and exciting segment that looks at anything that flies and has stew. No, that looks at anything that flies, RC, flight sims, that sort of thing. The first announcement was that Orbex is going to be releasing a global version of its Trees and Land, basically. It won't be a perfect solution as seen with a full fat FTX region as some of the add-ons like Pacific Northwest and so forth, but it covers the whole world, so you won't have to use default FSX textures again. What will it include? Complete replacement of FSX ground textures, custom autogen houses and objects, 3D lights with FTX day and night mode support, a bunch of custom trees, replaces the default FSX. Man, I'm having trouble with the three-letter words tonight. So that you can run FTX Central set to EU, NA, and so forth. It can be uninstalled, so you can revert to the default. And some custom land class in sample areas initially. This can be disabled. And perpetual free updates. If you pay the cost of about, I think it's around $200 in Australian dollars. And they have a dual installer for FSX and P3D. It will not include geographical or vector data, roads, rivers, coastlines, elevations, meshes. It won't include any full handcrafted land class and polygon land classes. Unique ground textures native to the area. Nope, won't have any of that. Upgraded airports everywhere. Not everywhere, no, not initially. There'll be, I think they mentioned there will be some updates where it's needed for airports. You won't have any traffic on all major roads. Extensive custom modeled POIs like power stations and things like that won't exist in this. But hey, the textures with FTX are pretty amazing. I have FTX Pacific Northwest, and it is a blast flying in those scenery areas because it just makes Flight Sim look like the next version. And yeah, $195 for the AU pricing there. It'll be compatible with UTX, but not compatible with GEX because that also replaces FSX default textures. And it'll also be compatible with a bunch of other things. You can take a look at this on the website, and more details are there on the Tech-Stew website. Next up, and the only other Flight Stew here we have today, is the SkyVector tool. And this is a pretty handy tool here, and I'm going to show you a quick demo of this guy here. I have SkyVector up here, and it's a great flight planning tool. It's free, it's online, it's a website. You can use it real world based. It's real world based. You could probably use it for a real flight. Not sure if that's sanctioned or not, but simulator based tools are usually not that good and not close to what's done in real life. And there are tons of content on this SkyVector site. For instance, here we have, this is the tri-state area of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and so forth, and you can see down here to our south is what is called a TFR region, and those are red circles, temporary flight restrictions due to important people, that sort of thing. And probably down here near DC, this would probably be the president, I'm guessing, or something like that along those lines. You can enter your starting point up in the upper left. So let's just say we want to go to KAGC. That is Allegheny County in Pennsylvania. It crosshairs it right there. There we are. And at this point, you and the way I have this right now is a world VFR. It's in VFR mode for general aviation. It's not geared towards jetways and such in this mode here. There are aids on topography. You can see towers and mountains. SkyVector shows real-time info, going for that realism thing, as I said, like with the TFRs. And so here we are. We're crosshaired on, well, I was crosshaired. I can add Allegheny County Airport to the plan, so I click Plan, and now it's in the flight plan. And I could manually type in each waypoint if I know where I want to go. So for instance, let's say I want to go to BSV. I can type it in and click Add, and that's Briggs. Now we've got Briggs in there, and it generates the line. And you can also incidentally click the hyperlink for Allegheny County Airport, and when you do that, it brings up a whole slew of great information on the Allegheny County Airport. And you can hover over the different areas to see. You can get your ATIS information, ground control tower, the approach numbers, the frequencies, the VORs in range, nearby navigational aids, tell how many dimensions the runway is, just about everything, including a sky view of the actual runway there. And let's see, how do I get back to the chart? So going back to the chart, here we're back on our plan. Maximize that again. And you can also drag your line. If you want to divert, you can just grab onto the line and move it to another spot and release it and click plan, and that will divert you down there, for instance. If you realize you're going into the wrong class airspace and you want to go around it to keep your simulation pretty accurate. Now, what it can't do is it can't auto-generate a flight plan, and there's no way to export to the flight sim of your choice at this point anyway. But once you have it the way you want it, you can pretty much print it up or take a screen cap of it, keep it on your laptop separately, for instance, or type in the range of the flight plan from beginning to end, and then take that into Flight Sim and then their default planner, if you will, and follow it there. But it's probably best just to keep this on a laptop, separate screen if you've got one, and follow through. Of course, it's cooler if you can put this into something like Plan G and then export it, save it as a flight plan file, and then use that, load that flight plan in Flight Simulator X, for instance, and your GPS gets loaded into your GPS automatically. But this guy is all strictly online at this point. Hopefully in the future they're going to add some enhancements to it. But I like to use it. I use it a lot. It's good for looking up information, especially. And we're going to move on to the final section, and that's the picks of the week. And this pick of the week is simply an app, and that is C.H.A.O.S. And if you've got an Android or a iOS device, you can pick up C.H.A.O.S for free on iPhone, and it costs 99 cents on Android. And as you can see here in this video, the graphics are pretty well detailed for an iPhone or an Android device. It's helicopter multiplayer at its best, and you can play online with this guy. And I have played it. It's pretty great. I highly recommend it because I have it. Pretty cool little game. Do you have this one, Dylan?
I do not. I'm not a big phone gamer.
You should get it and see if it's cross-platform supported. I don't think it is. Coming from iPhone multiplayer to Android, it's not like some of those old PS3 and Xbox games they had that were cross-platform. But
screen reminds you a little bit of Ace Combat. I don't know if you ever played that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I like it. I've played it. It's addicting. You sit down. The only thing is it's tilt based. I don't know if there's a way to turn off that feature, but you got to be able to move it around and play it like with a gyroscope and whatnot.
Yeah.
Tap on the screen. You got your direction control on the left-hand side. Your missiles are on the right, and your machine guns and so forth. So if you miss the button and you're about to get shot down, well, you're screwed. Well, with a standard on-screen type thing there. But that's going to wrap up the main portion of the show for today. And remember to keep on cooking with tech, and we'll see you next time on Tech-Stew. I'm still here, and we're still here, technically, for another few minutes. This is the first attempt at a short segment called the Tech-Stew Aftershow.
Okay.
So we're just talking ad lib. We're just, it was pretty good. We got that one done in, I don't know, 1 hour.
Forever.
I don't know if my time clicker's here right, but it took a little longer than expected. Hey, but there was a lot of stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be carrying a few things over next week.
Yeah, there's some good stuff, and we'll follow up to that little enterprise thing. I mentioned beforehand that I saw the article about the Death Star. We mentioned the Death Star was one of the ones that they told the White House, hey, how about a Death Star? And an official statement came from the White House about building a real-life Death Star by 2016. And White House's We the People website, they said They cannot support building the science fiction weapon for several down-to-earth reasons, and the administration shares your desire for job creation and strong national defense, but a Death Star isn't on the horizon, wrote Paul Shawcross, chief of science and space branch at the White House. The petition...
Just come back and be like, just no.
Well, they said it would cost $850 quadrillion for a real-life version, and the administration doesn't support blowing up planets, he wrote.
You know, I kind of agree with that. Since we don't have interstellar travel, like, blowing up planets is kind of a losing proposition. Like, I mean, you either blow up something not interesting, like, probably... I mean, you know, you can't really blow up Jupiter. It's not really the same blowing up a gas planet, so you're kind of really limited to 4 planets, and, you know...
Yeah, but that plus the fact that Luke Skywalker small X-wing took out the entire thing. They also felt that well, they felt that it wasn't too secure to build something along those lines. But how big are we talking about with this Death Star? I can't remember from Star Wars how big the Death Star was. I thought it was several moons.
You know what would be a good project would be to convert the moon into a Death Star.
Well, yeah, see, that would make a little more sense because it's moon-sized. And
you got a moon right there.
You could just hollow it out.
You just hollow it out. Dump the dirt and make a new moon next to the moon. Out of the dirt that you hollowed out of the moon.
Or put the giant dish right on the moon.
That's got to cut a few quadrillion dollars off the cost. Right there.
But the other thing that was floating around in the news was that of the Star Wars. They're making a new deal where they're saying they're going to actually make this live action Star Wars movie or TV series rather. And this has been in the works for years, and there's been several scripts that have not seen the light of day and so forth. But they're saying it's going to happen. I forget what the 2 studios made a deal to agree to make it centered around that of now I forget which planet, the one with all the water, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not enough of a Star
Coruscant, or not? No, that's not the one with the water. But Coruscant, basically the main planet in the story, the Coruscant underworld, I should say. And but there's also a video game, and I think this should show up here if I click the right button. Not that one. This one. Yeah, there it is. If I click play on this guy. This is Star Wars 1313. It's basically the exact same storyline. And so there's a potential for, in both this game and in the TV series, for big characters to appear throughout the series. I gotta say though, if they've done a pretty bang 'em up job, a good job with the Clone Wars. If you've never seen that show's a lot of fun to watch.
I didn't end up watching it just because it was tough for me to follow it time-wise without like downloading the whole series, which I haven't gotten around to.
Yeah, I have most of them.
Or managed to DVR it or anything. I seem to recall they did something weird, like they'd marathon like 3 episodes every like month or something weird like that. So yeah, I just kind of didn't end up managing to follow that series successfui.
Yeah, this could be.
I guess they gave
cool,
that
though.
robot a lot of lightsabers, though. That was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see a live action show come around, but I'm more curious about the 2015 Star Wars and how Disney will botch it or not botch it. I think that they've learned enough from seeing the first remakes, not the remakes, but the prequels, and how those turned out, that they won't botch this round of movies, I would think.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I like TV series generally better than movies just because you can do more with them. You know, maybe not special effects wise, but certainly story wise. So it'll be interesting to see if how well Star Wars holds up in that format, because I mean obviously it is very different from Star Trek. Star Trek was always designed around that sort of format where there's an adventure a day, and Star Wars really is not. So I don't.
Unless you're watching the new cartoon series, like I said, they do it really well. Every single episode is like an adventure in itself. So they do it pretty well. Episodic, very good. But well, we're gonna wrap up the after show because we've gone long on this show to begin with.
Yeah, seriously.
But, so thanks for joining us on the after show, folks, and we'll catch you next time on Tech-Stew.